So here I'm getting around to the unboxing of the track saw tracks. This is the shorter of the Makita tracks that I'm opening here. And there you go. Fully unboxed, that's the shortest rail. So here I'm getting oriented to how the actual track saw works on the track because, obviously using the DeWalt saw, it actually can cut on both sides of the rail. Moving to the Makita, you actually can only cut on one side. And here I'm trying to see if the DeWalt will actually fit on the rail, and it will not. So now I'm just, seeing how smoothly the actual track saw slides up and down the rail, seeing how much play there is in the track saw on the rail, tightening up the little cam areas that are on the base of the saw to take out that little bit of slop. And here just kind of sliding back and forth, just kind of getting a feel for how the Makita actually runs on its own rail. Now I'm just kind of comparing it to the actual DeWalt rail, just kind of looking at them and, grading the aluminum, if you will, and also examining the T slots to see, the differences. So now moving on to the 55-inch rail unboxing. Like any woodworker or basically a person that's fond of tools, it's always a good time when you're unboxing new tools. And as you can see, all of the rails come wrapped in like a kind of like a thin styrofoam type protective wrap to, so that they're protected in transport. As I said, the reason why I went with this Makita, or basically uh, bought a Makita track saw, even though I owned the DeWalt, was basically so that I could use the accessories that are made for track saws that actually have the um, T-track on top of the rail. Like any new toy, you got to try it out on everything. And now we get to the final unboxing of Tracksaw Tracks. This being the 118-inch Makita Tracksaw rail. This one is really nice because you can easily cut a full sheet of plywood, 4x8 sheet, 96 inches, with having adequate overhang on both sides so you can finish the cut. One thing I find with the DeWalt, which is only at about, I think it's 104 inches, it just kind of barely clears a piece of plywood. You can do it, but when you think about you either have to finish right at the edge, or you'll have to start at the edge because of, usually when you want your saw to get up to speed, you want it to be able to, you want to kind of work your way into the workpiece so that you don't have issues with kickback. And you have very little rail that's actually hanging off the workpiece. And if you pull too much off of the workpiece at the start of your cut, you will run short of being able to cut the full sheet of plywood, because it's only got about, was it like 8 inches? You're talking about 110 versus 96 inches. Or, well, I guess, what is that? 14 inches or so. I guess I gotta go back to math class. Or wait a minute. No, the rail is not 110 inches. I want to say it's 108. Let me just look that up real quick and see how long the DeWalt saw is. And this one came in a hard wood type thin box, just plywood sides, and then it's got like an MDF like backing and top. It actually was delivered by a freight truck to my house. This will be something that is a little bit challenging to move to a new location because of the length of the saw. I actually saw a YouTuber online, on YouTube actually, that couldn't fit it in his van, so he actually cut these track shorter. I don't plan on doing that, but you do have to be mindful when you buy these longer rails, in regards to, like, if you're not in a place where if you're not in your forever home, then you have to consider how you're actually going to transport these rails. I believe Festool makes a rail that's like 197 inches long, so they can get pretty unwieldy, but they're nice and light and easy to move around. It's super useful, as you can see here. I mean, you can't see it perfectly from this angle, but the track is hanging off of both sides of the plywood, which makes it easy to get started. As you can see how the track saw is way out of the frame. That's off the plywood. And so that gives you a good long, like start getting into your plywood, which is very different than actually using the DeWalt track saw. Every rail must be christened with one dry run of the track saw. And so now I'm going to pull out all the rest of my tracks. And as you can see, you see how I basically evened up the tracks on in that previous frame, at the start, and you could see how short the DeWalt was in comparison to the Makita. And now here I am pulling out the rest of the rails. Ironically, I believe I was recording, obviously, with that GoPro Max camera, and I honestly do not know where that footage is. going from just using a circular saw and a straight edge, or just freehanding with the circular saw, um, I have to say I made quite the upgrade now, having two track saw systems, and in both of those systems I have the rails that are offered in those lines. Both the Makita and the Dual only offer three rails, and both Makita and Dual offer rail connectors so that you can actually combine the different sizes of rail to make an even longer rail if you needed to. So if you wanted to get, two of the 55s to come up with 110 inches instead of buying the 118 inch, you could do that. It is more economical to do it that way. However, you do want to have like a straight edge up against the side when you tighten those down, so that you make sure that you get a more straight line or straight cut when you're combining two rails. So all of this here, this footage is from just before I built my MFT table. That piece of plywood that I have all the tracks on is actually the top to my MFT table, and this little session here of recording, when I did this video, I believe it was this same day that I actually started making my MFT top. And, I actually unboxed a few more products on this same day. One of them being the TSO guide rail square, and also the TSO parallel guides. And finally, I think I wrapped up the day unboxing the PARF guide system, which is used to make an MFT style top. It's a jig that you can use to get all of your holes, like I think it's 90 something on center, and it's just very similar to like a Festool MFT top, or any kind of multifunctional top that uses dog holes. So basically, this pretty much wraps up the journey to actually acquiring my track saws. You'll see in many of my upcoming videos me using both the DeWalt and the Makita track saw.